And while Sanders acknowledged the microchip shortage, which is raising prices and costing workers their jobs, does pose problems for regular Americans, he maintained that handling corporations' money with no strings attached isn't the way to solve it. Sanders suggested that Congress should work with microchip companies to address workers' and taxpayers' concerns. The number of Americans applying for unemployment benefits last week hit its highest level in nearly 8 months, but the total number of those collecting benefits fell. Applications for jobless aid for the week ending July 9th rose by 9,000 to 244,000, and that is up from the previous week of 235,000. Last week, the Labor Department reported that employers added 372,000 jobs in June, a surprisingly robust gain and in line with the pace of the previous 2 months. Economists had expected job growth to slow sharply last month, given the broader signs of economic weakness. The unemployment rate remained 3.6% for a fourth straight month, matching a near 50-year low that was reached before the crisis struck in early 2020. The government also reported last week that U.S. employers advertised fewer jobs in May, amid signs that the economy is weakening. Though the overall demand for workers remains strong, there are nearly 2 job openings for every unemployed person. This week, the government also added that consumer prices soared 9.1% compared with a year earlier, the biggest yearly increase since 1981. From May to June, prices rose 1.3%, another huge increase after prices had surged 1% from April to May. All of those figures reflect the unusual nature of the post-crisis economy. Inflation is hammering household budgets, forcing consumers to pull back on spending, and growth is weakening, heightening fears the economy could fall into recession. In an effort to combat the worst inflation in more than 4 decades, the Federal Reserve raised rates by 0.5 point in May, and another 3/4 points increase last month. Economists expect the Federal Reserve to jack up its borrowing rate another 0.5 to 3/4 of a point when it meets earlier this month. Besides carving up the average American's income, those rate increases also raise borrowing costs, rent, and mortgage payments for corporations, which cut into profits. As the crisis continues, many states are trying to provide their residents with more help. Democratic leaders of the Massachusetts House and Senate have agreed to a broad framework for up to $500 million in additional funding that would see credits for low-income earners, parents, and renters expanded. The deal comes on the heels of last week's announcement from House Speaker Ron Mariano that they would ask their branches to return roughly $500 million to taxpayers through rebate checks.
Is recognized for 1 minute.
Disability should not keep any American from fully participating in public life. This week marks the 32nd anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. The ADA provides critical protections for job seekers, powering our workforce. It helps students thrive in our schools, and it empowers citizens to participate in our democracy. But like any law, the ADA is only as good as our ability to enforce it. For too many, the ADA does not deliver accommodations that people with disabilities need. I'm working to strengthen the ADA, including for individuals with mental health needs. My Student Mental Health Rights Act will help universities adhere to ADA requirements, empowering disabled students to succeed.
Decisions about abortion. With that, Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent. Mr. President.
Senator from Texas.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the following senators be permitted to speak prior to the scheduled roll call vote. Myself for up to 15 minutes, Senator Blackburn for up to 10 minutes, Senator Tester for up to 5 minutes.
Without objection.
Mr. President, coming to the floor and listening to some of my colleagues talk about their concern for lack of access to contraception, and some have said we need to pass a bill codifying same-sex marriage when that is currently the law of the land by virtue of a Supreme Court decision, the Obergefell case. Reminds me of the old story about the little boy who cried wolf. He cried wolf when there wasn't any danger, and then once there was danger, people didn't come to his aid because they thought it was another phony crying for a wolf, crying wolf. I can understand how our colleagues, given inflation, given crime, given the broken borders, wanting to change the subject to something else. But that's all this is. This is mere posturing pre-November, pre-midterm elections. This isn't about changing the law, because the law already permits ready access to contraceptives. The law already permits same-sex marriage. And so this idea that we ought to spend scarce time here in the Congress, which we have in limited supply, reaffirming rights that already exist, is a clear political narrative designed to divert the American people's attention from things that really are at risk. That is the paychecks of every American family because of inflation, because of failed energy policies. We know that the price of gasoline and diesel and fuel to fill up your car so you can go to work or send your take your child to school or summer camp. We know that our cities are on fire due to spiking crime waves connected to drugs that are coming across the southern border. And of course, we know that the southern border is completely open with a big red carpet and a welcome mat out for anybody who wants to come to the United States illegally. And the cartels that are rich and getting richer because of the flow of their human traffic are also getting rich because of the flow of illegal drugs that took the lives of 108,000 Americans last year alone.
Importance of protecting our nation's forests and the communities they sustain. On September 17, 2020, backed into a corner by the encroaching flames, Morton laid down his life in defense of that conviction. It's a noble sacrifice, but one that no one should have to make. Much like Morton and his fellow hotshots, America cannot afford to turn around and walk away from the issue of wildfires. We must do everything we can to ensure that other brave firefighters do not have to give the full measure of their devotion, as Morton did. That's why I am proud to serve as co-chair of the Congressional Fire Service Caucus and to bring this wildfire response and drought resiliency bill to the floor today. Exacerbated, as we know, by the climate crisis, parts of the American West are experiencing their worst drought in 1,200 years. And this is fueling deadly and damaging wildfires affecting millions of Americans. These disasters, Madam Chair, tear through communities and inflict untold destruction and grief. This issue doesn't just affect those living in the West, however. As I've said, the effects of drought and wildfires cost our country tens of billions of dollars each year. We all pay a price. Not the price that Morton paid, but we pay a price. To my friends on the other side,